The land was used to house state institutions and residential facilities of some high court judges lies bare with no trace of the old structures. It is nearing the perfect shape that would enable contractors to erect what has been described as the biggest edifice to unify the country. Construction of the National Cathedral was supposed to have begun in April last year, but the outbreak of the coronavirus disrupted the schedule. The president at a groundbreaking event in March 2020 indicated that the cathedral will be a Thanksgiving monument to the Lord for the many bad things Ghana has not experienced. But a week after the ceremony, Ghana recorded its first case of coronavirus. Many have pointed out the seeming irony between the speech and the COVID-19 experience of the country. But others maintain God has been merciful to Ghana even in the period of the plague. The Secretariat in charge of the project says the period of the delay has rather helped in preparing adequately before construction takes off.
The whole process, the momentum towards appointing a contractor was almost slowed down, but ironically, and that also gave us the space for the kind of conceptual work that have allowed us to almost seamlessly integrate the three elements. I think without that, we would have had a contractor in place and yet not have all the elements in place. And so it might actually have costed us. You have a contractor in place, and then he finds out that, look, you want a museum, you want a conference center, and all these elements should have been part of the design.
The project, when completed, will mainly be made up of three components known as the cathedral, the biblical garden, and the Bible museum. 3 contractors have been selected to supervise the project, including one Italian firm and 2 Ghanaian companies. They were selected based on their track record and understanding of the project.
We now do have a contractor. It's really a joint venture made up of a leading partner called Rizzani, one of the major construction firms in Italy, who have a history of constructing iconic projects. They've done some major restorative work, churches, but they built the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. We felt that, at least after the rigorous selection process, they were the ones who not only had the technical capacity, but also had kind of the understanding of the essence of the project.
Many have criticized the idea of the National Cathedral, questioning its relevance to Ghana's current socio-economic context. Some have also raised issues about the state's involvement in the project, even in its siting. But the president has expressed his continuous resolve to seeing the dream of a national cathedral come to fruition. On the eve of the signing of the letter of intent with the contractors, the president expressed his unflinching support to the Secretariat.
I've been called a lot of names for this idea, but I've remained indifferent, completely impervious to it, because I have no shame at all in stating that I am a Christian in politics, and I don't, and therefore have no hesitation in supporting this thing.
The project site was one of the leafy neighborhoods of the capital, and some of the trees had to be chopped down to make way for the cathedral. But the Secretariat says it has taken some innovative steps to preserve some of these trees.
To secure the site, we also had to get rid of the trees. One of the major decisions we took was that these were trees that have been here for more than 40, 50, some 100 years, and so we wanted to preserve them. And so we've engaged the Parks and Gardens. They've uprooted the trees, they've transplanted them to their site at cantonments, and they're nurturing them. So some of the trees will be brought back, others will be sent to other places, others will be sold.
So these trees were here and they've been taken out of here. But we know that as part of the planning process, you were supposed to import some trees to be planted here as part of the garden that you were going to do. How are you going to combine the two?
That's still going to be part of it. As we said, there are 3 elements of the project. The cathedral itself, and then we have the Bible Museum, and then we have the biblical gardens. We really want this to be a major religious center, almost a center for African Christianity. And for that, we want to really bring some of the key trees and shrubs of the Holy Land. And so the Biblical Gardens is really at the end. But in addition to that, I mean, the cathedral itself is really surrounded by quite a lot of trees. And so that's why some of the trees would have to be brought back.
For management of the parks and gardens, this has come in timely as it has provided them with the opportunity to actualize their plans of transporting trees to other destinations.
Now the process for which it has to undergo is wrenching. We have to wrench, look at the size of the tree, looking at its diameter. We look at it and dig around to sever the roots from the soil and later lift it up with a lift, put them in the payloader and bring it to its site. Yeah, we're talking about 215 trees already. Parks and Gardens has done about 64, which we are still counting. And it depends upon what space we have. Particularly, we are looking at whether we are not going to disrupt utility lines, water, and other things. So we are much more careful in discharging our duty. The first major assignment Parks and Gardens has ever encountered. And I think, to me, it is history. We are making history. And we have done it with excellence. It has been happening, but it has been on the quiet. Now, Parks and Gardens want to make noise to say these trees that we are wantonly felling can be preserved. And we want to make a strong case that when these trees are relocated or brought to a home temporarily, we can redistribute it, particularly if it is not needed at a certain point.
This land, we are told, was bare. All the trees we have here were transported from the National Cathedral project site, and some will be transported back when the project is completed. But what exactly happens here? We are being told by authorities that some steps are being taken to preserve these trees so that they can transport them in their right way and also send them to the National Cathedral project site. This is a big thing for authorities at the Parks and Gardens. We are here to find out how really they are going to preserve these trees.
In the history of the department, this is the first time such a grand project has been undertaken. The remaining trees are to be preserved on the site, while over the 200 species are to be transplanted at this preservation site.
Well, let's talk about the preservation. What exactly are you doing?
Yeah, the preservation has to do with conditioning the trees. So primarily we need to recondition the soil. We need to introduce root enhancing hormones that will allow the plant to quickly recover, and then we overcome the problem with transplanting shock.
What are the results that you are getting so far?
So far, you can see from our this particular mango tree was brought here without any fresh leaves, but for the period, you can see new shoots coming on. You can see the Terminalia catapa with a lot of shoots. You can also see this same Terminalia catapa with a lot of shoots. This Aki apple was also transplanted, and you can see all the roots are green. The moringa, as you see it here, is being properly conditioned, and they are all taken up.
They hope their services will be patronized by private developers to help fight deforestation.
What we primarily want to achieve is to tell private developers, that the wanton felling of trees can be solved by consulting Parks and Gardens to be the forefront in relocating the trees to temporary places, for which after we can be put at where it should be.
The relocation of these trees has, however, been hindered by the existence of utility cables on the project site.
There are still 11 kVA lines crossing the site. There are still sewers crossing the site. There's still water mains live on the site, and there's still 33 kV power lines up at Gamal Abel Nasser Street, which is at the top end of the site as well. They all have to be removed for us to do the full excavation for the project. We can excavate in between those services, but at some point it will delay us if they're not removed.
The contractors are hopeful that they will meet their deadline if the site preparation is completed in good time.
Our program was we were meant to commence bulk excavations on the 3rd of February, so we're currently about a week late on that. The time is still recoverable if it happens soon. The as long as it starts in the main area, we're going to start. So if they come to our priority areas first, which is the main centre of the cathedral, that's where we're going to do all our excavations initially. If they commence and get it cleared in those areas, there'll be no delay. So the phases of construction are, initially it's the bulk excavation works. Once we get the bulk excavation completed, we commence with the raft foundations, and then the rising walls, the basement floors, the ground floor slab, and then we commence with the structure of the church from the ground floor up. So it's mainly concrete works up to the mezzanine level, and then from there up there's a major structural steel frame that sits on top which supports the roof.
As part of the construction, some public roads will have to be closed to traffic.
So there are two roads that cross the site currently. There's Haile Selassie Street and there's Gamal Abdel Nasser Avenue. They both need to be closed permanently for the works to commence and complete. They're at the further extremities of the excavation works, so as much as they're slightly behind our schedule for being closed, we can again cope with some small delay on it, but we can't cope indefinitely with delays on it because it will delay the project. Because once we commence our batching plant, Haile Selassie Street must be closed because all our concrete will be coming from there and crossing through the site.
The cathedral is to be constructed with funds from private individuals and organizations. With the construction phase in progress, the Secretariat says it is assured of donations. But when will the project be completed? The Secretariat is working with a tentative date.
Given the time is taking and also COVID, the timelines have changed a bit, but not too significantly. At the moment, they are telling us by January 2024, everything should be ready. So from the Secretariat, and this is not official, we are working toward the dedication of the cathedral on the 6th of March 2024. Okay. If they're able to finish it, as they say, and I think, these are contractors who take what they provide very seriously. That they work internationally, and so if they give you dates, they normally keep it.